October 6, 2015 Planning and Zoning meeting. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. If I could please have roll call from left to right.
Anthony Sutton.
Mike Dolan.
John Grant.
Jane Servine.
Edward Mead.
Carl Esmore.
Tom Nickel.
Tom Panzala.
And I'm Ben Gettinger, also present, Phyllis Leggett, Board Clerk. The first item on the agenda is executive session, 86 Concord Avenue. If we could have a motion going, Mr. Mead with the motion. Give a second, Mr. Panzala. All in favor? We're in executive session. We are out of executive session. The next item on the agenda is 824 approval for the sale of 32-34 James Street. If the board remembers, we approved in 8-24 to acquire the land through strict foreclosure. Now the city is asking us to sell, and if there's any questions, we'll answer them. If anyone would like to make a motion, now would be a great time. Mr. Mead.
I will make a motion of approval.
Having a motion in a second, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is public hearing closed by 11/10/15, expires on 1/14/16, proposed tax regulation amendment, petition of John Duff, Esquire.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Duff. I'm an attorney with the office at 147 Broad Street here in Milford. I'm here tonight on behalf of Stone & Milford LLC, which is the owner of the existing ShopRite shopping center, which consists of two parcels. A parcel located at 155 Cherry Street, which is comprised of about just shy of 17 acres, and 199 Cherry Street, which is about a little more than a third of an acre. There are actually two parcels that are part of the total ShopRite shopping center. This is an application to amend the CBD1 zoning regulations by adding a proposed section 3.16.6. This regulation is a functional equivalent to a nearly identical provision in the shopping center design district zone that permits the subdivision and sale of separate parcels within one overall development. In the shopping center design district zone, section 3.9.6 provides that a development site may be subdivided for separate sale components of an approved plan, provided that the overall development complies with that regulation. And 3.9.6 is included in the packet behind tab 1. Under this regulation, 3.9.6 for instance, subdivision approval was granted to Westfield in 2004, so that the ground on which the target building sits is its own zoning and tax parcel, and Westfield eventually conveyed that parcel to target. And behind tab 2 is the approved subdivision plan from 2004. That parcel has none of its own parking, does not have its own access, but it does have easements over the Westfield parcel both for parking and access. And I think we would all agree that it would be impossible for anyone to know, based on how the mall functions, that Target owns the property on which its building sits. From real property and property tax perspectives, The separate parcel makes a difference, but from a zoning perspective, the target parcel is simply part of the law. What the proposed regulation amendment seeks to do, therefore, is simply to extend to properties within the CDD1 zone that exceed 10 acres the same ability to subdivide and sell a parcel, or if a lot already exists, simply to sell that parcel to another entity. You may ask, well, how many different properties in the CDD1 zone exceed 10 acres? Well, there's 4. There's my clients on Cherry Street. There's the Ceruzzi or Showcase or the new ShopRite shopping center across the street on Cherry Street. There's one in 150 Post Road, which I think is next to the Alley's development. And there's an industrial property at 155 Hillston. So there's only 4 properties within the CDD1 zone that exceed 10 acres. In our case, it's a little bit different from Westfield. With Westfield and Target, we need to get subdivision approval because there was only one overall parcel. In our case, however, our overall development already consists of 2 lots, and you can see that behind tab 4. There's a larger overall parcel that includes Bob's, ShopRite, and all other stores, other than the emergency care facility that has an address at 199 Cherry Street. That parcel has always retained its own identity. Several years ago, you may recall that this board approved an ASAP urgent care facility, and that ASAP facility was acquired by St. Vincent. So if you drive down Cherry Street, if you're trying to avoid, if you're not trying to avoid the total lines traffic across the street, if you look to your right, you will see the St. Vincent's urgent care facility. So in the same way that Westfield subdivided and conveyed the target parcel, the owner of the 2 existing parcels, in our case, the larger Bob's parcel and the St. Vincent parcel, simply wishes to convey to another party the existing St. Vincent parcel, and because the lot already exists, there is no need for subdivision. And as the target, should the board approve this regulation and my client sells 199 Cherry Street, the overall development at Cherry Street will continue to operate and function in the exact same manner as it does today, and it will be impossible for anyone to tell, either from a functional perspective or a zoning perspective, because all the underlying zoning regulations will continue to apply. Nevertheless, to ensure that this is the case, the proposed 3.16.6.4 specifically provides that reciprocal easement agreement must be executed between the parties owning the lots. So you may be, I know this is sort of a lot to take in, but you may be asking yourself, well, if you already have 2 lots, why can't you just convey the 199 lot already? And the reason that is the case, the reason why we can't do that, because you also have a requirement in the zoning regulations that says all parking that services use on a lot must be located on that lot, or it must be on another lot under the same ownership. And that's the case currently with 199 and 155. The 199 parcel, the St. Vincent parcel, I think it has 8 spaces on its own parcel. And the balance of parking that's required for that parcel is located on 155. So we can't convey it, otherwise we create a zoning violation. I'll be candid, this is a very critical matter for my client. I don't want to make this regulation change all about my client, but it is critical to my client. As you know, ShopRite is leaving, we're moving across the street. The wine storage takes up a substantial amount of space in their center. He's facing colossal competition across the street from Total Wine, which is fine. That's American competition, but they're facing some serious challenges and are trying to reposition their center to make it successful. This is an important part of that to generate some capital in the sale of this one parcel at 199. So I spent a considerable amount of time with David, who's very generous with his time, talking about various ways in which to accomplish this goal. And we looked at different lot line adjustments and such things, and we decided that the cleanest and most honest way, candidly, was to do a regulation amendment similar to what already exists in the regulations, albeit in the shopping center design district. And we understand that on a smaller parcel that may provokes some questions or concerns, but certainly on a larger parcel where there's plenty of parking, access is straightforward, that it still makes sense in the same context, that makes sense in the shopping center design district, it would make sense in the CDD1 zone, provided the overall development is of sufficient size. So when you change your regulations, you have to do two things. One is you must consider your plan of conservation developments, and you must make sure it's consistent with your comprehensive plan. Well, the plan of conservation development doesn't speak to this sort of issue, but there's certainly nothing in that plan with which this proposed regulation is inconsistent. In terms of the comprehensive plan, and your comprehensive plan is found in your zoning regulations, the zone map, and the built environment, the reg change is consistent with the comprehensive plan because the same provisions found in the SCDD zone ensures that development parcels will continue to operate in a manner approved by the Commission and in full compliance with all other zoning regulations, and there will be certainly no deleterious impact to any nearby property owners. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. If I can point out one other thing. Certainly we use 396 from the shopping center design district regulations as the basis for the proposed 3.16.6. So if you look behind tab 3 where the proposed regulation actually is, I want to point out just two distinctions. The second paragraph, 316.6.2, is identical to the shopping center design district regulation because that calls for subdivisions. The third paragraph, 316.6.3, is identical as well to the shopping center design district regulation. So how is this different? It's different in that 316.6.1 addresses our situation, which is two parcels already exist, but they're shared parking. So in this case, we don't need a subdivision because the two lots are already created. And that's what that addresses. When existing development site already consists of two or more parcels. So that's the purpose of the 316.6.1. And then 316.6.4 is the 10-acre requirement primarily, and also the requirement for an easement between the two property owners to ensure that the overall development site continues to operate as one overall development. So, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Mr. Grant.
Question I have is the impact. You said there was within the CCD1 zone, there was only 4 other pieces of property that would be affected by this zone change?
Yes, by this regulation change, yes.
What is the advantage, besides being an advantage to your client, what's the advantage to the city and the taxpayers to make this regulation change?
Well, there's two things. First of all, there's no problem. Second of all, it helps promote development because it allows for easier financing. If you look at, there's a lot of sort of threadbare properties in the city, and I understand we are limiting this to larger parcels. But in our case, we have a property owner who has done everything that he can in the marketplace to make his center a viable and thriving center. It's facing lots of competition. What this will do is allow them to sell this property for us and generate some revenue so that the money can be reinvested in the center. I think it's an absolutely fundamental benefit to the city because it frees capital for more development in those areas of the city where we want development. So I think it's important, and I think the board ought to consider adding this throughout all their commercial zones. I didn't want to bite off more than we should be chewing in terms of this regulation amendment, but I think it's of critical importance for the city because it addresses the marketplace, which is where development is happening. We have plans of conservation development, we have zoning regulations, but until you have an applicant who has some capital and a plan, the regs and the plan of conservation and development can't do anything on their own. It takes a developer and a property owner to come forward with a plan, and there's got to be some capital behind it. So that's how it's going to damage the city.
Won't it potentially increase the tax base by potentially increasing the value of the land?
I wouldn't speak for the tax assessor, but it certainly could, yes.
Any further questions? Mr. B.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, for you. If this parcel is sold off and that building only has 8 parking spots,
Yes.
will they have a waiver from?
No, that's the whole point of the last section of the regulation amendments. If you look behind tab 3 of the reg itself. If you look at 316.6.4, we're required to have an easement agreement that's recorded on the land records to ensure that there is access and parking that will be shared by the two developments. I mean, that takes place now, but as I said, there's also a regulation that precludes parking that satisfies the need for one parcel to be located on a different parcel if that different parcel is owned by a different entity. We comply now because both parcels are owned by my clients, but if that's sold, the other parking that's required to service 199 will still be located on 155, but because this regulation says if so long as your overall center complies with the parking requirements in this case, then it will be deemed that the small parcel will comply.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, we'll open this up to public comment. Is anyone here planning on speaking tonight? Seeing no one, any last questions before we close? Mr. Meehan.
Mr. Nutt, could you tell me again which properties would be impacted by this?
Sure. So it is obviously ours. I'm sorry.
I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry. Obviously our property. I call it Ceruzzi, the new shop right total line parcel. 150 Post Road, and I have it's just to the west of Balance. I have the tax card. I'd be happy to give you a copy. And 155 Hill Street, which I didn't know there was a Hill Street in Milford, but it's a light industrial zone, and there's I think a manufacturing use on the side currently.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we will close the record. Does anyone see any reason why we can't vote tonight? Seeing none, would anyone like to make a motion? Mr. Sun?
I move for approval.
Having a motion, do we have a second? Mr. Dolan with a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Anyone against? The motion passes 8 to 1 with Mr. Grant next. Do we need to pick a date? When it's effective? Does the applicant have any input on when they want this to become effective?
I'm pretty sure that the effective date can't be until after it's published. Yeah, I mean, Phil certainly knows the publication dates far better than me, but my recollection of statutes is that it cannot be before it's published. So assuming after. Right.
All right, the effective date will be November 1st, 2015. Thank you.
Thank you all.
The next item on the agenda is liaison report. Anyone with a report? The next item on the agenda is regulation subcommittee. Mr. Grant.
We have one submittal that's going to the board for review. Basically, what this is right now, our regulations state that when there's coming in for a new structure, that the plans have to be signed and sealed by a registered engineer or architect. What this does is changes the wording so that it is in line with the state building code and state statutes, which states that under certain conditions, certain types of buildings and certain uses are not required to be signed and sealed by an architect, which will allow for local smaller developers and single family and two-family homes to come in and be able to provide their applications and not have to go through getting the plans signed and sealed by an architect.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Saab.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Grant, where it says others in compliance with the state statute, are the others enumerated in that state statute section?
Yes, they are. And that state statute section also spells out exactly what uses are required by the census.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Grant, we need to take a vote on whether to send this to the city attorney for the next step tonight.
Yeah.
We can accept that. Would you like to make that motion?
I make a motion that we would approve this regulation change to send it to the city attorney and other organizations within the city for approval. Other outside agencies for approval.
Having a motion, that got Phyllis is here tonight. Having a motion, we have a second. Mr. Bean, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Mr. Sutton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am in favor of the motion, but I would like, as a point of suggestion or information or something that can be communicated to the city attorney, if the language could be amended to read or by those or individuals enumerated in Connecticut General Statutes, Chapter 390, Section 2298. And I apologize for my very specific terminologies in that regard. Thank you.
Mr. Grant, any comment on the proposed amendment? Could you just repeat the language so we get it in the minutes in the right way?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. My suggestion would be replacing the word others with individuals named in Connecticut General Statutes, Chapter 390, Section 20-298.
Having an amended motion, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Mr. Grant?
Yeah, there's one where it says individuals, and it would also need to be firms or companies, because it's not just strictly individuals.
Mr. Sutton?
Certainly, I would certainly agree with that, and I would encourage that the city attorney in finalizing language, crafting language, will do what is appropriate under the regulations.
More discussion on the 6-word sentence? Hearing none, all in favor? Anyone against? The motion as amended passes. The next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Any comment or would anyone like to make a motion? Mr. Panzella? Mr. Bean, second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Anyone against? The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is Chair's report. I do not have a report. Mr. Bean, anything to report?
Well, yes, last month, the chair and I met with the fire representatives, fire department representatives, and went through the site plan review guidelines. And it's just come to my attention that there may be some changes since we were given the information at that time. And I would like to make a request that our city planner communicates with them so that we have a clear guideline on what changes have been made and that they're given to us and we're in full awareness of what they are.
Yes. Mr. Lee is alluding to is we had a checklist from the fire department, fire inspector, and there may be an amendment to that, correct?
Maybe numerous changes, but I'd just like an update on it, yeah, and maybe you can get it to us from them.
We will speak to the city planner. That's a great suggestion, and we will get that for you. Thank you. Any staff report, Ms. Leggett? Anything? No staff report today. The meeting is adjourned.